But right now, we're going to get going with our Maine's vacation and hospitality forecast. I know all of you are interested in knowing how many new hotels are actually being developed in Portland and how long can this go on. And we're going to hear from Sean Riley from Maine Course Hospitality Group to tell us all about what's going on in the hospitality market.
Well, hi. Hello. There we go. All right. My name's Sean Riley. I'm with Maine Course Hospitality Group. I just had my 31st anniversary with Maine Course Hospitality last week. I've been in this business for 5 decades. Now, I know you're looking and thinking I'm old. I am, but I'm not that old. But 5 decades. I've crossed over 5 decades. So I've been doing this for a while. And to answer the question that's on everybody's mind, besides will hotel development continue in Portland, is how's staffing? And that's why I asked to be out of here at 3:15. I'm making beds at the courtyard downtown. After here, when I finish that, I'm going to go work the bistro over at the other courtyard. So it's not going well. But so as I said, I've been doing this a while. And I did have glasses when I started, and I had it on font 12. Now I've got it on 18. Now, I'm a teenager now. And I don't know if you know what a teenager is. I have all the things I wanted as a teenager 50 years later. There's no school, no work. I get an allowance probably in another 5 years. I have my own place. I have no curfew. I have a license in my own car. I have an ID that gets me into bars and gets me 10% off at Dunkin' Donuts. None of my friends are afraid of anything. You know, we've all lived a good life. They're not afraid of getting pregnant. None of that has a problem. You know, for those of you who are teenagers, and I see a few of you out there, I can tell, you'll feel really intelligent after this. Our brains are slower, there's no question. But it's because they're so full of knowledge. It just works slower. And it takes a lot longer for us to think of things, but that's just because there's so much data in there that it has to get through it. Scientists actually believe now that that data starts to compress on the eardrums and makes many of us hard of hearing. Now, when you walk into their room, you know, you get in there and they're like, oh, shit. What did I remember? What did I come in here for? You don't remember. But that's actually nature's way. It's been proven. That's nature's way to help us make sure we get enough exercise at our age. So if I mess up today and the numbers are wrong and there's typos, and I did notice some, so I'll see if you can catch them, but there's typos. Many of you are teenagers, and you're not going to hear half of what I said anyway. And the other half of you probably aren't going to remember. So we're in good shape. Now, I was a guy that grew up in America before lawyers. You know, before they ruin things. And then not the real estate lawyers, but other ones. I had to put that in there. But you know, back in my day when I was a kid, I used to go out on the playground and one of the kids falls off the monkey bars and smacks their arm and breaks it. And it's tragic, but we all laughed. It was funny. But, you know, we didn't have to take the monkey bars down because some kid broke his arm. You know, we sometimes do dumb things. When I was 12, this person came up to me and said, hey, you know what you can do? If you take the canning jar and you put dry ice in it and then cover it. And I said, what happens? He goes, it'll blow up. I said, oh, cool. So I said, where do you get that? And he says, the ice cream trucks. So I grabbed the jar, went out to the ice cream trunk, and I said, hey, I hear if I put this in here and I put the dry ice in here and cover it, it'll blow up. And he goes, cool, I'll get you some. Now that's the America I grew up in. But we got to remember not to do dumb things. In our industry, sometimes we've done dumb things, and we may be approaching some of those things. So as I said, I'm from Maine Course. I did this probably 12 years ago during the recession, and it wasn't fun. So I started telling jokes. Now we're starting to hit the peak and maybe coming down, so I'm bringing jokes back. But, you know, so I'm going to share some information from Smith Travel Research, which is a national accounting firm that brings stuff in, keeps us in track. So occupancy in the United States over the last 12 years, that's the occupancy, the number of rooms sold, but the number of rooms available. In 16, it was 65.5%. And I look back at my presentation from 8 or 9 years ago, it was in the 50s. So there's been some nice gains. In 17, 66%. In 18, 66% again. And then in 19, it looks like we're at 67.2. That's through November because the numbers aren't tallied for the rest of this year. Now, back to the ice. I didn't finish that story. So with the ice that night, I'm sitting in the living room, I was sitting in the kitchen with my mom. She's taking shards of glass out of my face and my forehead. My dad walks in, and he goes, "What happened? How'd you do that?" I said, "Dad, I took the jar of glass. They said if I take the jar, I put dry ice in it, I cover it, and it'll blow up." He said, "You sat there knowing it was going to blow up, watching it." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're a moron." He smacked me. So when we start looking at some of these things coming in to our industry, and we're wondering what is going to happen in our industry, we have to really pay attention. So let's look at the Maine Star Report. And we're going to look at the ADR first for the national. But basically, it went from $124 to $131 over the last 4 years. Now, there's real money in that. When you increase rooms sold, there's expenses, cleaning and all that stuff, unless the owner or manager does it. But when you increase ADR, the rate, it's all profit. There are no costs to that at all. And then RevPAR is the thing we kind of manage closely, because that's if you're up in occupancy and down in ADR, it doesn't matter when it's the average of the two that come together. So in the United States, we're at $81 back in 16, and it's risen to up over $88 this year, month to date. So it's real key that that continues to happen. In Maine, the percentages, let me show you the percentage real quickly. It's a little more dismal looking at it. It seems like, wow, that's really great. And it is. The last 10 years have been a heck of a ride for us. But in occupancy, it's been up a tenth of a point, 1 point, another tenth of a point. And this last year, it's gone down slightly. And that's the first time in a while that has happened. And it's pretty, most of the brands are saying that that's probably going to happen over the next couple of years. The ADR, that's the average rate, that's where we kept our head above water through this last year. People just pay more. Even though we didn't sell more rooms, they paid more. Up 3.1 in 16, 2.1, 2.4, and then 0.1. The RevPAR, most of that was contributed by the average rate. So that was a nice gain in RevPAR, but it really was rate. So that worried some that, we're not getting as many people traveling. Now, I'll get into the Maine piece. In Maine, we have a lower occupancy. Obviously, we have a bit more seasonal in a lot of our locations. This is for the whole state of Maine. So we're at 59%, about 10 points behind the national rate, went up to 59%, almost 60, went down a little bit. And then now this year, it's around 60 again, year to date. And the rate, though, is where Maine really does well. $124 to $129 to $134 to $145. So that's better than the national right now. So we're able to charge a lot more when we're busy in the summer, but in January, there aren't quite as many people showing up. And the RevPAR has the same kind of jump, $10 rate. This last year, it went from $78 to $87, and that's pure profit. So in Portland, where I'll be making beds this afternoon and tonight, this is the Portland MSA. This is not downtown. So there's another whole, we don't have that data. Smith doesn't, I could give hours and ask people for theirs, but just assume that downtown is definitely higher than this in rate and occupancy. So the occupancy went from 64% to 65 to 66 to 69 this year. So it was a good year for occupancy this past year. The rate went up to 133, 137, 138, and 140. Now that's lower than the state, but that's not the region just downtown. That's including the Motel 6 out on the strip and that kind of stuff around the outskirts in Scarborough and South Portland. And RevPAR also has taken some nice jumps in downtown Portland. I would say most of the hotels downtown have over $100 RevPAR easily. So I'll talk a little bit about, I'll get into the pipeline that's happening. But before I do that, I got to tell you about my grandson. As a senior, I can talk about my grandson. So I took him to a playground, and I was up on Munjoy Hill. And I thought, man, what a difference in playgrounds. Those things, they got a 4-foot plastic slide. And he goes down, and he goes, oop, he scoots down, another jump. He's just going like 4 inches at a time. And I said, that's not a slide, that's a scoot. And he's going, wee pop, and he's just going down 4 steps 4 inches at a time. Well, when I grew up in America, we had a 6-story steel structure. We climb up, sometimes fall off, but that's okay because they didn't take it away from us. So climb up, ready to go down the slide. We get on the slide, And you go down fast, and you take, in July, that's 285 degrees when you're sitting on it. And you get to the bottom, and there's nothing soft or rubber down there across the gravel. And you get up, taking this, the stuff out of your backside, and you get off and you go, yeah. Now, you can't do that. So we're just going weep up, 4 inches down every time we go. So we gotta, when we talk about the slides and going up and down in our business, we've got to be careful. We're at the top of that slide. And starting to slide down, we have to just, it might be better to go with the new plastic thing, so just do little bumps at a time and say, weep up. So let me get going on, we got the Portland market down. So in the pipeline, we've got quite a few hotels. This is the last few years, since starting in 13, this is nationwide. With 3,000 projects in 13. In this past year, it's 5,700 projects. That's what they're projected for this year. But it was never just 1 year up, 1 year down. It was a steady increase. So there's a lot of supply and growth, which is great for economies, but it's not as great when you're a hotel owner that's got a hotel that's been there 3 or 4 or 5 years, because now you've got more supply. And as long as the demand keeps up, and it has in Portland for a while now, but when the supply is up here and the demand now levels off, things start happening. People get a little anxious, they charge the rates a little bit less, and therefore you get into this little bit of price warring kind of thing, and everybody loses. So we're not at that point yet, but there's that fear of that happening. You can see the average increase in room supply was up 2.3 in 17, 2.1 in 18, 2.1 in 19, 2.2 is projected for 20. And a lot of these are leftover projects, and this is varying degrees of places throughout the country. But so it's been a steady, and 2 points is not outrageous. There were years that they were higher than that. The scary part, though, is that every single year it's that incremental growth, which can be hazardous to a hotel owner. So in the Maine development, the lodging development stuff comes from Lodging Econometrics out of Portsmouth. They're the national expert on development. So in Maine, we had 15 projects back in 13. Then we went 16, 16, 16, 11, 13, and 13 again this year. So it's not huge in Maine. But if you're a small operator, you have one hotel in Waterville, Maine, and someone comes in and you've got 2 hotels, that's a big significant thing happening. The growth rates are much smaller, though. It's 1.1 in 17, down to 1% in 18, 0.5% in 19, and 0.6. And it's looking to be less in 2021. So there's a little bit of stabilizing. I think people are starting to say, okay, maybe we ought to be a little more cautious. So back to that slide. That poor kid, he's going down, he's going 4 inches at a time. It's 4 inches to stop, weep up, and he's just getting, but I'm feeling like, man, that poor kid, he's got to experience what I had. So I said, so I'm going to get up there. I'm just ready to give him a big shove on that 4-foot yellow slide. Like, ready to give him the shove, and all of a sudden, 6 iPhones are recording me. Go ahead, old man. We're watching. Go ahead. We got you. We dare you. So I didn't do that. But back to predictions. So predictions, this is what's expected to come into our market in Maine, in Portland. 3 in Portland, that's expected at early planning. A lot of these are a little bit outdated, but there are 3 projects under construction now in Portland. And that's pretty much it for right now, but there's a number of others that have just come into the pipeline. I think one just got approval last night up on the west side. Only one in southern Maine, but none in northern Maine. The Portland MSA, there's one that's under construction, really there's 3, and only one in southern Maine and one in mid-coast. And then starting in 12 months, Portland is 4, so there are some more projects in the pipeline, one in southern Maine for a total of 5. So I'm going to make a few predictions here that I'm not. I've asked people to make them. Smith Travel Research is a national company, and their expectation is that in 20, there'll be less than 1% RevPAR increase. Now, that's not great, and that's the lowest. It's the worst since the recession. It doesn't mean it's bad. We're not in a bad sense, but it is low. Part of that is it goes back to that demand and supply. Demand might be doing okay and level, but if the supply is going up, it's making it more difficult for the hotels. Now, CBRE, which is another national firm that does a lot of this stuff, they expect 20 and 21 to be a decrease in occupancy, selling less rooms. But it is slower than they reported, so that's the good news. And when it's slower than they reported, they think because of that, the occupancy and ADR decreases are minimal, and it may turn sustained growth in the expansion in 22 with a 2.1% increase, and 23, 3.5. Marriott and Hilton both, of course, they're public companies, so they're cautious with what they say. But they're telling us that it's probably a 1%, the anemic growth of maybe 1% RevPAR or sales growth in the first 2 years, and then a slight tick up in 22 and 21. I think the thing that most people are saying is this grand rise that we've had. I mean, it's been great. We've got people working on a company, general managers and salespeople. They've seen nothing but success. And so all of a sudden, we're going to have to start scratching. It's going to be a whole new thing. We have to go out and work harder for it. But I think they're saying because of this downturn that we might see, or this leveling off more so, the anemic growth, it should come back, and we're not going to be in that trough we had back in 7, 8, and 9. So that's the good news. JLL says that we should be able to still be able to do 6.5 cap for places like Boston or major metropolitan areas. I'm sure Portland will be in that category. The tertiary markets, 8 or 9% cap rates. If you're in between, maybe if you're out at the mall, or if you're in, Augusta or something, you might get a 7.5 cap. And REITs are out. They were a big contributor to a lot of the high prices that were being paid. Large caps are out. Money's a little expensive for them. And small companies are in. So that helps a lot of the people and companies in Maine, New Hampshire, and the states that we operate in. They also say that local banks are in. They are the winners because of the operators that are out there combining. So what's another nice thing is that we're working with local people, local banks, and doing business together, which is really kind of what Maine, I think, is all about. So trends in the hotel business. Digital is where it's at. In the rooms, digital entertainment. You can get Netflix on your TV in all the Marriotts right now. You can get Hulu or Pandora or anything, but just going in, putting in your account, and you can use it, and it stays there for the whole thing. Hilton is doing it in a different thing. They're doing it through the phone, and that's under development as well. Both hotels, you can find a phone, find a room, a hotel on your phone. Then you can reserve the room on your phone. How many have done that? Reserve the room on your phone? Okay. Then you've chosen a room. I want that room, second floor on the corner. You've done that. The next step is then you can check in via your phone. And then, now, we've just converted all our hotels at $27,000 to $30,000 per hotel. Convert all the locks so you can go with your phone, press a button, and you can check into your phone, check into your thing. So that helps us with our staffing, hopefully. That's one of the things that will be one of the steps. But that's all happening right now, and it's quite a thing. Techs in the room. Both Marriott and Hilton have plans. And it's pretty fun. They have in their corporate headquarters, they have these cool little rooms where they just experiment and try. The control, Hilton is going to have you control your TVs from your phone, the shades in your room, the music, the heat, and anything else that's in the room. They can do it all from your phone. Marriott on the other side is doing things with more personal data. So if you have a Marriott app, Bonvoy app, all the information you want is in there. You can say, my temperature, my room should be 68 when I get there. After you've already checked in, my temperature is going to be there. There's pictures of my kids that can be shown on the TV on the side wall, which is like a frame thing of your kids. You can have wake-up calls set at the right time. You can have an Uber be there at 6:30 to take you to a dinner reservation you just got at 4th Street. All of that can happen through your phone, and it can be done ahead of time through your app. Hotels are embracing sustainability, not just because it's politically correct, but sometimes it can save money. So there's a lot of good reasons for being more sustainable. Right now, all our properties are going through changing from the little bottles that you get. For those of you people who like to steal them, you can no longer do that. But we are going to have it's going to be giant jugs, or not jugs, nice dispensers. But it's and we're not pouring the stuff in. It's just like you do it, you throw it away. But that was interesting. The amount of stuff I went in to say this millimeter of a piece of plastic can save this, and it's better than buying the big jugs and the refilling them. And they really researched it to make sure it's doing the right thing. And I was quite impressed. Hotels are focusing on direct bookings. The cost of a reservation outside the Hilton Marriott Holiday service is really expensive. They can charge 15, 20, 25%. So everybody's trying to drive the reservations through your phone, through your app, so you don't even have to call the call center. You don't have to go through Expedia or Hotels.com or anything. Airbnbs are here to stay. They're not going away. They're not hurting the business. I think they're enhancing it a little bit. They're enhancing the guest experience, and it's providing someone who might not want to stay in a Hampton or a Holiday Inn. But I think they're going to the playing field is going to start leveling out with the taxes and and the fire, life safety, and emergency and all that kind of stuff is probably going to start leveling off. So the ones who are in it just for the fun of it will probably drop out. It'll just be the ones who are real players. So I want to get back to that whole thing about my grandson again. I mean, when you get a grandkid, you got to like it. And I have a granddaughter coming on February 29th. She's going to be 4 years old. She's going to be 1 year old 4 years from now. But, you know, the car seats, if you've had a car seat, you get a little kid. I mean, you get a 50-pound kid, you're trying to climb into that car seat. And I mean, I'm getting older, I'm not a kid anymore. Climbing over, I'm going to get a hernia trying to get my kid in. I don't know what time you can take him out of those things. If it's 5 years, 7 years, 18, I mean, he'll be out of getting a graduation from high school, and they'll say, okay, now you could ride like a big boy, get in the back seat. But, so I don't know if that's going to happen. You know, we didn't even have, a lot of us in here, we didn't even have seatbelts in our cars. I mean, we were running across the back seat from one side to the other. And, you know, every time Mom would stop, we'd go over the front, and they'd kick us, throw us back. But, and so I'm down a marginal way. I get pulled over by a cop. And he says, sir, I'm going to let you off this time. I said, for what? He said, you don't have a sunshade for your grandson. I said, a what? I said, a sunshade. I said, are you serious? And I thought he was joking. He said, no, I'm serious. He said, it's against the law to go without the sunshade. I said, you got to be kidding. He says, yes, you have to have sunscreen. I said, sunscreen? When I was a kid, we had dirt on our face, and we just rubbed it all over our face, and that was our sunscreen. And then when we were going in at night, we just washed it off with a garden hose. So it really was. So be careful when you have your kids in there. I don't want you to get arrested either. A lot of these things I talked about were things, the history, what it was like when it was my day. We have to learn from our mistakes. And if we had things we did wrong, we made mistakes in the first trough, the second trough, the third trough. I've been through 3 or 4 of these now. We have to prepare for those. We can't over-leverage, and we can't overbuild. Those two will keep us healthy. And you can't do what you always did. That's where the brands are changing things. So I thank you for having me here, and look forward to having you stay in hotels around the country.